You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Samia Sayed. Welcome to the show. Coming up, we have an interview with Dr. Abdullah Hakim Quick over Black History Month in Canada. But first, let's go over the headlines. Ukraine defends against Russian onslaught. Feds face 2 court challenges for Emergency Act. Conservatives quiet on Our London Family Act tabled in Ontario. Edmonton Muslims show strong support for human rights. And now the details. Hours after saying Russia would not occupy Ukraine, Russian troops have invaded Ukraine from 3 axes: north, south, and east. Ukraine's defense ministry announced that 4 ballistic missiles were launched from Belarus, a Russian ally. Casualties on both sides are mounting by the hour. International condemnation and vows of tougher sanctions on Moscow have since broken out around the globe. Russia's actions also threaten the minority Crimean Tatar Muslim population in Ukraine, who fear forced exile and a loss of their homeland. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned the attack, saying that it was a violation of international law. The Canadian Constitution Foundation and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, or CCLA, will challenge the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act in court, despite Prime Minister Trudeau's announcement yesterday ending the emergency. The groups are not challenging the constitutionality of the act. They claim Cabinet's decision to use it was unlawful, as the Freedom Convoy's protest was not a national security emergency. CCLA's executive director, Noah Mendelson, told local media sources that the process sets a dangerous precedent for other causes that depend on protests, such as climate change and Indigenous land rights. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney also announced yesterday that his government will file their own challenge. Ontario's New Democratic Party tabled yesterday an Anti-Islamophobia Bill named Our London Family Act, after the Muslim family of 4 killed last year in London, Ontario, in a hate-motivated attack. The Liberals and Green Party agreed to support the bill, while the government's progressive Conservatives, who hold the most seats, are silent on the matter. If passed, the bill will establish an anti-racism council, prevent white supremacist groups from registering as organizations, create designated safe zones around houses of worships, and begin provincial review over hate crimes and incidents. Justice for All Canada, or JFA Canada, was in Edmonton this past weekend to meet with Muslim community leaders and organizations. Al-Rashid Mosque, one of the largest Muslim charities in Canada, committed to supporting action alerts based on JFA's Canadian human rights campaigns. JFA Canada also attended an Edmonton Imam Council session with over a dozen attendees and committed to run trainings and workshops, as well as circulate action alerts. Justice for All Canada is a non-profit, non-partisan organization that defends human rights internationally, including the Rohingya, Uyghurs, and Indian and Kashmiri Muslims. That's it for the news. Now with us is Dr. Abdullah Quick, a senior historian with a master's degree and a doctorate in African history at the University of Toronto in Canada. He is also a senior lecturer at the Islamic Institute of Toronto and the outreach coordinator with the Canadian Council of Imams. Welcome, Dr. Abdullah. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam. So, Dr. Abdullah, I'd like to begin by asking, what is Black History Month?
Black History Month began formally around 1926 in the United States. A famous Black historian, Carter G. Woodson, developed what was called Negro History Week. Then it became Black History Week. Then it was adopted by the United States government in 1976 and the Canadian government in 1995. So this is a time when the whole nation stops and recognizes the achievements and contributions of Black people, people of African descent, who were enslaved during the Atlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm. Is there a reason that it is celebrated specifically in February?
That's an interesting question, because you wouldn't connect African people with the coldest, shortest month of the year. But Carter G. Woodson chose this time because it was the birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the president who had the Emancipation Proclamation, and also Frederick Douglass, who was a famous abolitionist who fought against, he was an African American who fought against slavery in America.
From what you've mentioned so far, Black History Month sounds like it mainly pertains to North America. Are there international movements regarding it as well?
Yes, it is now being celebrated or recognized by the UK in October. And with the international social media, it is recognized throughout the planet because people recognize that one of the greatest crimes after genocide is the crime of omission. And so in America, the Americas, the omission of the history and contributions of the native population and then enslaved African people is one of the greatest crimes committed in this part of the world.
And how do you observe Black History Month?
Basically, we encourage communities, individuals, masjids, religious organizations, universities to stop and take some time to look at the history, the contributions, what happened to the enslaved people in the Americas, to bring out the truth, because it's been covered up. And strangely enough, in the United States right now, they are banning books. And so, even though this is something you'd expect that would happen in the Middle Ages, it's happening now. They are banning books that talk about the true history of the United States. And so it is of utmost importance now for all of us to take the time to do this research and to bring the information out to our children and to the general public.
And I will touch upon that topic later on. But my next question is, during Black History Month, we see that it's common to have events centered around one individual who is quite prominent within their society. Can you give us a name and a story of a prominent Black Canadian North American individual?
Yes, when you look at North America in general, because Canada is very much tied in with the United States, especially dealing with Black people, there was a tendency to look at Martin Luther King before as an example, and he is a great example. But more and more, it is now recognized that Malcolm X, Alhaj Malik Shabazz, is probably the clearest example of straightforward discussion and somebody who lived his beliefs.
I saw that you were teaching multiple courses during this time, whether it's Black History Month or not. Can you tell us a little bit about these courses?
Yes, we are offering 3 courses which are specially constructed to take a person who has no understanding of African history or what happened to enslaved people, to take them from zero right into a good understanding. One is called the Black Muslim Experience. And this was geared toward the Muslim community and people who, wanted to know, where do Black Muslims fit into this. The second is African Sunrise. And this is dealing with the history of Islam in West Africa, and it brings out the life of a great African scholar and leader, Sheikh Uthman Den Fodio. And the third course we're teaching is The Empire Strikes Black, and that is the history of African people in East Africa. So it goes from ancient Egypt to ancient Somalia to Ethiopia to the Swahilis. This is very relevant. And what was the relationship to the Prophet Muhammad SAW and the early Muslim community? So this is a great opportunity, and we're offering these courses virtually free.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if the Star Wars reference was obviously put in there, but I do like the reference. How did Black History Month look like for you?
Alhamdulillah, even though we're virtual, it was very busy. A number of associations, organizations. We had online presentations. We had workshops. We had discussions. And now people are even taking it a step further. With Islamic Relief, we went into an anti-racist workshop. And this is where we actually looked at the issue of racism, and we tried to look into our own lives, and even to Muslims, the tribalism and racism within our community. We are confronting this now because we believe that this is one of the obstacles in the progress of the Muslim community and the whole general society.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that textbooks or courses that teach about Black history are being banned in the United States or even blocked. Do we see that same effort here in Canada?
We don't see that happening in Canada at this point in time. But the issue we're facing here is omission. and that is that the discussion of African history, the contributions of Black people, and what happened during the slavery period, it virtually doesn't exist within the textbooks. We just finished getting most of the textbooks to change. Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. So you can see where the paradox is in saying that, because that totally disregards the native people. Similarly, the whole concept of how did Black people get here? What did they do? What are the sufferings? What is the actual history? Who built these nations? And you will find that it is on the backs of African people enslaved that the economies of the Western world were actually built. But yet, they have not received anything for the suffering and the struggles and the pain that they went through.
And how do we push for this change to happen? I mean, looking at Indigenous past and history, we see that they've pushed for so long, so many years to have it included in educational curriculums. And even still, it's a little bit almost on the back burner. How do we push for Black history to be included?
Yes, we have to look at racism, the dynamics of racism. First, you have racist ideas, the ideology. And in this part, we need to push to have more balanced curriculum to be studied by our students, whether it be in elementary school, the high schools, the colleges, universities. So that's the ideology. But secondly, there is racist expressions. So we have to struggle against racist words and terminologies being used. But the third is systemic racism. And that is where Black people, people of African descent, have been literally blocked out of rising up in organizations, a type of glass ceiling. When you're going up and suddenly you hit something, you can't see what you're hitting, but something's blocking you. And this exists in Muslim organizations as well. And so we have to confront this at this critical point in time where the whole world, now you can see, is in an uproar.
Mm-hmm. And we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask this question. What happens once Black History Month is over?
When it's over, it needs to extend to the rest of the year, because the idea was not to have a special month, especially February, which is the shortest month of the year and the coldest. No, this should go all year round, the same way we are recognizing the First Nations all the time now, and they should be recognized in our histories. Black people and enslaved people, oppressed people in this part of the world need to be constantly recognized and discussed in the same way that we would discuss other aspects of our history.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdullah, for joining us today and telling us a little bit more about Black History Month. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
You were watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. That's it from our Toronto studios tonight. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more Canadian Muslim content. Stay safe, and until next time.